Hi, I'm April.
And I'm Bayleigh.
We are real-life friends and neighbors.
Together we run a business called Passionist Designs.
Our favorite part of our job is being in people's homes and hearing their stories. As we became inspired by these stories, we wanted to share them with others. That's where the Nestled podcast was born.
So join us each week as we are encouraged to pursue our own design decisions based on what we love instead of what fills our Instagram feed. Every home has a story, and we can't wait to hear yours. Hey guys, welcome back.
Welcome back. Do we sound really cold?
It's so cold.
It was snowing in Mobile, Alabama.
Does not ever happen.
So
Ever. I think the last time we had that much snow, I was in the second grade, which was a few years ago.
Right. My kids were talking about how we had the ice apocalypse a few years back, but that doesn't really count. This was like for real snow.
Yeah, fluffy snow you could play in. My poor baby slept through it, so it was unfortunate.
Yeah, well, we were out. It was late at night when it started snowing. But whenever you're in Mobile, Alabama, and it snows, you get up in the middle of the night and you go out.
That's right.
So
we were at a rehearsal dinner for my brother-in-law and my new sister-in-law. So
it was a big weekend.
We got to drive home in the snow, so that was
fun.
Unsafe.
But
we made it. And so by the time we got home, they were asleep. But that's okay because the rehearsal dinner was worth it.
Yes.
And the wedding was beautiful.
It was so beautiful.
Every detail was perfect.
It was.
The florals are gorgeous. And it was such a sweet and intimate and special ceremony. And I don't know.
Yeah, we've long been inspired by this group of people that this bride has in her life, and these ladies who all live on the same road and in the same community, and for years and years have just done life together.
Yeah, they take care of each other in a very special way. And I think whenever you see something like a wedding they put on together, then it's just kind of on display for everybody to see how neat that is. So.
Right. And we were very inspired by the community that always comes together for those kind of things. And that's part of what we are creating in where we've moved intentionally to the same area and are creating a community here. And so we were inspired by them and also by several of the ladies that we've been able to watch over the years.
Yeah, lots of sweet ladies. Some of you are listening, so hi, we're singing your praises.
Hi, you Wilmer Ward Road ladies.
Yes, I said to Miss Sabrina Curtis, we're kind of making our own Ward Road out here Midtown.
Yes,
so
we are.
We're loving that. And then also, one thing that we've been talking about that we just found really inspiring is the bride's sweet mother, Miss Connie, lost her husband a few years ago, and we know that going into something like a wedding without your husband must be very difficult, and she handled it with such grace and beauty, and it was special for us to be able to see, and just reminded us of this conversation that we had with Francine
Ivey. And we so what we're thankful for today, and we want you guys to think of people in your own life, but we're just really thankful for strong women that we have to look up to, who have walked through hard things, who have in the joyous times and in the lowest of lows show what it is to be graceful, to be just faithful to the people around you and to the Lord. And that's the thing that we see as what helps these ladies put one foot in front of the other is their faith.
Yes.
And that's something that we want to live out in our own lives.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably the biggest common denominator between the two of them. But if you don't have hope in Christ, I don't know how you get through.
I don't either.
This stuff like what they've walked to. So with that, do you want to tell a little bit about Francine?
So we will introduce Francine. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself, but she is a longtime friend of mine and my husband's, and you'll hear a lot about her through this interview, and we hope that you're inspired by her and her life and just her walk with the Lord. And we hope that you'll enjoy this, and we think it's a perfect time of year to really reflect on what gives us strength. So
here's Francine.
Good morning, Francine. Welcome to the Nestled podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here.
We're so glad to have you. And for those of you who do not know, this is Francine Ivey, one of my dear friends for a long time. And she just has an incredible ministry. And we're just going to start off and let Francine share a little bit about herself and her family with us.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited about being here with you guys. Super excited about your business and this podcast, and been listening to all the past ones.
Oh,
So
yay. Thanks.
excited and honored to be here. My name is Francine Ivey. I am a mother of three. They are about to be 22, 17, and 12. And they keep me pretty busy. I was married for 27 years to an awesome pastor. So I was a pastor's wife for a long time, well, I was married to the love of my life, big time. We just moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area in June, we not. It's been growing like crazy, and of course, moving from Mobile, Alabama, to the big city of Dallas-Fort Worth, it's been absolutely crazy. We've learned to shop online.
Yes.
To avoid traffic. Amazon has become my best friend. And even the grocery stores up here, you shop online, you drive up, they stick them in the trunk.
Right.
It's just amazing. But anyway, so lifestyle change for sure. But super excited about it. We moved out here because my oldest daughter goes to the King's University, which is a university out here. She's studying ministry as well. So, we're loving the Texas life, and just settling into our church, and then of course our online ministry, which we're loving, and the girls are writing all their music and all that good stuff. So I am going to mention later, so I'm going to go ahead and mention that because of some of the questions that we're going to talk about. I was also a military brat. So moving is not unusual for me. A lot of people ask me how many times I've moved. I'm like, it's too many to count.
Too many.
Yes. So it's going to be fun talking about how we set up a home and make a home a home.
Right.
Because when people ask me what my hometown is, I'm like,
I don't know what to say to that.
Yes, don't know what to say to that.
Yes.
So, yes.
And Francine, your mother was not from the United States. She was from Japan, correct?
Yep, from Japan. I was born in Japan, actually. Yes.
Yeah. So you really do have home all over the world.
Yeah.
I do.
You mentioned your online ministry. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. It's called Consumed by the Call Ministries, and I do a daily devo live on Facebook each weekday morning at about 7:30 a.m. Central. Usually 7:30 to 8, kind of depends on how God gives me the message each morning, but it's been fantastic. It started in kind of a hard time in our life, but God is using it not only in our life, but not only in the lives of many, but also in our healing. January 8th of this year, my husband was killed in a tragic accident. He had actually started this ministry, and in the middle of all the craziness, and of course in the middle of my grief, the Lord woke me up I think it was about 8 days after the funeral, and he said, "You're about to get on your husband's daily devo." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And you don't win arguments with God. You just prolong the argument.
Right. It's still there.
Yes, it's still there. So he just kept pressing on my heart. And I said, what am I going to say? My husband was the one with the 4 doctorates. He was the one in the ministry. I was his support system. And I ran the camera. I stayed behind the camera. He was the one in front of the camera. And he would have to literally lure me out of bed with coffee because I wasn't even an early morning person. And these are 7:30 a.m., which literally means I get up at 5:30 a.m. to get with the Lord to be able to be live at 7:30 a.m.
Right.
So out of character for me. Well, on that Thursday morning, God woke me up at 5:30. He said, "I want to talk to you. I need you to get on the daily devo." And I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to say. And I started getting ready because you can't argue with God too long. And God just started downloading into me. And I still didn't quite know what was going on. I figured maybe 20 to 30 people would join me and listen. By the time I got done being raw and real and telling people where we were and how God was ministering to me in the middle of grieving, my amazing husband, 34,000 people watched in the first 24 hours. Now it's reached almost 40,000 on that one video. And God just continues. I told him that I would not set an alarm clock, that if he wanted me up, he would have to wake me up. And it's almost a year now. And every morning, 5:30 a.m., my eyes open, and he begins to download an amazing message that is not of me. I still go back and watch him and think, where'd that come from? And God's been using it to change lives and to minister to me and my kids, giving us a purpose to continue to do what, just to continue to further the mission that Wade started in us. It gives us a real connection to him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool because I feel like through you and through Peyton and Reagan all kind of taking part in sharing your heart and your life through this process, I hear things in you guys and I'm like, Wade is still alive. You know, there is so much, he left so much life. He, you know, of course we all are like, he's fully alive now, but even on this earth though, there is so much of Wade that is still here, and in so many people. I mean, I can't, Bayleigh's in our small group, and this so often I'll be like, you know, our friend pastor said this one time, and you know, just so many things that like you, of course you could never forget something that Wade pounded into you, you know?
Yes, absolutely. It was, it's interesting to me because the last set of daily devos that he did was all about leaving a legacy. It was all about being a legend in the kingdom of God. And you know, it took a while before I was able to go back and watch all of those, but it's literally like he was, well, one, he was doing his own eulogy about who he was. I mean, it amazed me, the impact. Even afterwards, we were hearing from people and people writing us and their lives being changed. And so that's kind of what God is kind of pressing on our family, is to leave a legacy, to realize that our words and our life last long past, you know, our lifetime, and our prayers last past our lifetime. You know, I've even heard people tell me, you know, prayers of my grandfather are still affecting my life today. You know? So just being on purpose is kind of our call right now, is to tell the church to be on purpose, and to leave a legacy. So
well, there are several reasons that we wanted to have Francine on the podcast. One, I've always thought that it was really cool how your home has always kind of reflected you. It doesn't look like anybody else. It's, you know, I was telling Bayleigh, I said, I always loved that she had some Japanese influence in her home, always had some pieces that it was like, you know, things from your mom or things that you had gathered through the years. But also your home tells your story, I feel like. And but on top of that, just the decor, you and Wade were the first people to really invite us in and let us live life with you. And like, you know, through all hours of the day and night and whatever that meant, sitting around the table and having conversations. And really what we encourage people that we are doing life with, and in our church and in our small groups and all of those kind of things, that we realize a lot of people have never experienced, is this really just life on life with people where they are discipled and they are ministered to and they are loved and they see who you are through just everyday life things, and they get to know you in that way. And you guys were the first to do that for us. We had never really been discipled before, and that happened in your home. And so for me, this was a really cool opportunity, because I was like, that's where it started for me, of like, no, this is what it looks like to really love people beyond just surface level. And we loved, you know, Nan Jemison. She was on a couple weeks ago, and she said, when someone crosses the threshold of your door, the door of your home, the relationship changes. And there is so much truth to that. And you guys were the first to invite us into that. So with that, we wanted to hear from you, and so we'll just kind of dive in. What does home mean to you? I know that has probably changed throughout the years, but how would you describe that right now?
Like I said, for me, it's so different because I've moved so much. A lot of people would call a state a home or a town a home or something like that. But for me, that was never an opportunity. And our home was, and I guess that's why my home reflects my story, is that you make a house a home, and that we live in moments and experiences. And, you know, this year, even more so, we're realizing the power of memories and making memories. And so, you know, I want my home to reflect our story. I would love for you to be able to walk through my house and know us. Right. So pictures are big. My faith is big. You're going to see, if you walk into my home, you're going to see lots of scripture. You're going to see just pictures of my family. And, you know, even when, as my children have grown, I've created places for them to express themselves. Each one has different likes and different hobbies, and I wanted to make sure that they had access to that all the time. I believe those are God-given, so it's my job as a parent to support that or to encourage that in their life. And so and that included helping them. We just moved here in June, and I said, what do you want your bedrooms to look like?
Right.
You know, what colors, what design, how does it? And so each one reflects them right now in their life. And you know, a home is not the walls, it's what you've done on the inside and how you create those memories. The dinner table is huge to us. Wade's mother, you know, ingrained in him with the fact that she always set an extra plate at the table just in case someone stopped by. And we just believe that, you know, those are the memories. Those are the things when you invite people in, and the conversations, and turning off the TV. Oh my goodness. You know, and allowing the conversations to happen. So.
Do you know what I think is really neat? And thinking about how you were talking earlier about legacy, when you said that about Wade's mom, that she passed that to him, and then he passed that on to people like April, and then they encouraged me and my husband early in our marriage how to do that, and then we try and encourage people to do that. So like with her. Right. Setting that extra plate at the table, the effect that can have.
Right.
You know,
that his
really
mom
cool.
Still has her legacy too.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Was there ever a time in your life that home didn't really feel like a haven?
I'd written no. I think that we've been even in my childhood. My parents, because of moving around, my mom made sure that it was like that. Even though she was particular about her home. I remember that I if I moved a pillow, she knew it, things like that. It was always the place that I knew I could go. When life got crazy, I could always do that. And I would say Wade's parents were the same way. But, you know, although both those homes were very, very different, my mom's was like, you know, show pillows and show towels and everything. And Wade's parents were like very homey, and it didn't matter if there were dishes in the sink. If you came over, it wasn't a pretense. Every wall would be filled from top to bottom of pictures of family and stuff like that. But it was also such a haven, and many people would come there when they were hurting. And so I would have to say no.
What a blessing.
I've always felt that. Yeah, I've always felt that in the home.
What do you hope that your children will remember most about their childhood home?
Being happy. They you know, it's funny, they say most people won't remember half the things you say, actually most of the things you say, but they'll always remember the way you made them feel. And I think that that's my goal with my children and with everybody that walks through the door of my house, that they feel loved, that they feel special and valued, and not only that they feel like God feels that way about them. And if I've done that, you know, that's why it makes me happy to hear how April felt that way. If I've done that, then I've done what I'm supposed to do, and that's what inviting someone into a home is supposed to do. So I hope they remember the way they feel, and they feel valued, and confident.
So would you say that decorating and design is natural to you?
As far as I can remember, I tried to think about it. I know that I've had a good example with my mom. She loved to flower arrange, and she loved to decorate and all of that. I love it too. I do a lot of mimicking. I'm not crafty, so everything I do, I either have to buy or get someone else to create my thought. So I'm not the one that is in the garage painting and distressing and all of that. But I love watching color and texture and making things happen. And after I finish something, then I want to invite everybody over to see it. Like, you've got to come see how this came together, you know? So I would say, as far as I can remember, it seemed natural, but I think it was mimicked so well for me that it's just, as far as I can remember, I was doing it. So
yeah. What are your favorite places to shop now that you're in Texas? You have like access to so much.
Yes. Well, the garland came from Canton. It's called First Monday. And they had told me it was a flea market. And I was like, well, I've seen a flea market. They're like, no, no, no. But that is not a flea market, you guys. If anybody has not been to Canton, Texas yet and gone to this First Monday trade days, you've got to go. It is usually the first weekend of every month. And it is acres, and they're boutiques. They are not, it's not a flea market, not any flea market.
It's not the Mobile flea market.
Yeah, people.
No.
Well, I see flea markets on TV, and I'm like, you couldn't do one of those flea market shows at our flea market.
No,
our flea market has fleas. That's. It's not the same thing.
Yes. Oh my goodness. It's the coolest place. Of course, every time I go, I want to redecorate my house.
Right.
I'm going to start with that whole theme. At home has been my new thing that I absolutely love. It's just like this huge warehouse full of decorations, and so we've enjoyed that. I've banned myself from it though. As far as house, what is it, Bed Bath and Beyond? Yeah, that was as far as beddings and all that kind of stuff. So pretty cool. That was the other Canton find. There's a place, a booth there where you take a picture of your bedding, and she creates the artwork for above your bed, and it matches your bedding, and it is amazing.
What a good idea! Yeah, it's a good business idea
for any artists out there that are listening.
Yeah,
yes,
we have a few.
We do. We have a few artists that are some of our that follow us, and so it's like there's a different idea.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. It was awesome.
Okay, so I know that you're in a new house, but is there any part of your house that you want to change right now?
Right now we have it's a 2-story, and the upstairs right now is a worship room that is actually in progress, and all of my kids play music, so it's kind of a music and worship room. Again, that thing of if my kids love something, I'm going to produce something that makes it so easy for them to get their hands on, and obviously Wade was a musician as well, so we have all of his special guitars and things like that, and so it's in process. So yes, that is something that I want to change. We want to. There's an IKEA here. Have you ever been to an IKEA?
It's so nice.
Oh, they have this couch system where each piece is separate, and I can see that being in the worship room so that we can move chairs around if they're songwriting.
Yeah, that would be
they
nice.
Can move around and create a cluster, or they can create a larger system. So that's kind of the goal, is to get that, and so that we have movable pieces for the couch, and so that's in process. I know one wall we're gonna put all the names of Jesus on it, which is gonna be great for the atmosphere of worship. And so that's the area I'm working on right now. So.
Sounds great.
That's cool. Yeah, and as a child I would have loved that,
yes, that
would be really cool.
My parents always mention, my mom listens to this, so she's gonna know. They would every few years they would mention that our upstairs, our attic should have been a second story, but we just chose to go with a different plan. And so it would be maybe we'll turn that into a dance room for y'all. But they never gave me that daggum dance room. And I always held out hope that one day I'm going to go upstairs.
Well, maybe they'll do it for you now. And you can dance your heart.
That's right.
Dance your heart
Pure
out
Bar
up
is
there.
a thing.
Yeah. You can have your own Pure Bar class upstairs.
Yeah. Anyway. Have to drive to Grand Bay, but...
Right. No big deal.
They do spoil me more now than they did when I was a kid. So
yeah.
She'll feel bad when she hears that.
So who or what would you say inspires you, Francine?
Right now, I guess my focus is on my husband.
Right.
And it's so neat that we have so many videos, and Facebook is constantly throwing the memories up. It's so neat to have social media right now. I know right now we're kind of in the middle. Last year at this time, my kids were doing the 25 days of Christmas, and each morning they were waking up and they were getting with their dad, and they would work on a song together. And so not only am I seeing them sing together, which is fantastic, but I'm watching their interaction. And a couple days ago, even just watching Wade look at Peyton, who's my middle daughter, and the way that he endearingly was looking at her like a father does with pride. So I would say probably every morning that I wake up and get ready to do my daily devo or get ready to parent, I'm thinking about him, and I'm thinking about what would he do and how would he do that with me, and I think seeing the impact of his life made me realize I want to have a life like that. I want to have a life like that. His funeral itself, they quit counting at 1,200 people that were there.
Wow.
It took 5.5 hours to go through the line of people that were coming the night before, and the line was all the way out to the road for 4 of those hours. And I thought, that's the kind of impact I want.
Right.
And stories of people saying, I only met within 30 minutes, but here's how it changed my life. And I was like, how do you change someone's life in 30 minutes? So that's my goal. That's my goal.
Right. I was listening this morning to your devotional, and I heard so much that I was like, this is so true of your home and of your life and of Wade's life, but was that no one is ever too far. And that's one of the things that I would say, even for inviting people into your home, you can be very fearful of people because you want to think that people are bad. But one thing that you guys have always been surrounded with people who were maybe not the easiest people, but whenever you open your heart and your life and your home up and say, no one's too far, no one is like outside of the reach of Christ, and so with that, no one's outside of the reach of his people. And so in loving people as he loved people, as Christ loved people, that includes everyone. You know, it's the one. He leaves the 99 to go after the one. And
absolutely.
And so that's something that I would say that is different about you, and not, it's easy to say that's different about Wade, but you and Wade were one, and you are still one. And it's just as much you, and I know he inspires you, but you inspire so many people too, of leaving the 99 to go after the one that's far and the one that seems hopeless, but there's never someone that's hopeless. And you've lived that out in your life, and so that's a really inspiring thing for me and for other people to see in you.
What are some ways that you honor his memory in your home now that he's gone?
There's well, obviously there's pictures everywhere. We found pictures of him with each child. One of the things that most people mention about him is his hugs. So I made sure to find a picture of each of the kids with each of them in a bear hug. So all over the house are pictures of that. There's one area right in the middle of the living room as you walk into the foyer, where I have a collage of pictures of him, and then I'm going to read it because it's just out of the sight. It says, because someone we love is in heaven, there's a little bit of heaven in our home. And is in the middle of those pictures, and of course one of our last family pictures are in there, is right below it as well. I naturally his dresser is still in my room, and on top of it has his cologne, which was a major part. If you ever got a hug from him, you knew he just put cologne on because he wanted to make sure he smelled good. And then there's 2 chess pieces. One that says king, one's a king and a queen from a chess piece, fairly large, probably about a foot high. I bought a couple of Christmases ago because we had this awesome conversation where he said, I'm going to be king of my home. We were just married, and I was like, he talks about that smoke was coming out of my ear, fires out of my eyes, and I was like, we should have discussed this before we got married. And he says, wait a minute. If I'm king, then you're queen. And I said, well, define queen for me. And so, we always felt like in the kingdom, we were a king and queen for God. And so that's on top of his dresser as well. There's a jewelry box with the top of it with his favorite verse of they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, they shall mount up with wings as eagles, which was his favorite verse. And so his dresser is also a place that I can just kind of go to, smell the cologne and remember, what we have. And, so lots of little places.
Yeah. For women listening who are walking through this, or people who are listening now and don't realize it yet, but they will walk through this, what have you done to create a place of refuge in your home for your kids after such a big loss? Because I imagine that's got, as a mama, That's got to be one of the hardest parts.
It has. I think the main thing is keeping that open communication, making sure we've clung to Jesus with all of our heart during this, and you have to, because that's where all the truth and the hope is. And that's obviously where the comfort of knowing that heaven is real, that all of that. So conversation, making sure that the conversations are open, letting each one of them deal with their grief differently. The thing about children, and the more you have, the more you realize it doesn't matter that you came from the same parent. Right. It doesn't matter that you carry the same gene. And even that mine looks so much alike, they do not act alike. Right, they do not respond alike. And it's been the same way in grief. And being don't try to make one feel like they're not grieving correctly because they grieve differently.
Right.
Letting them grieve the way they need to grieve. I have one that needs to talk and reminisce while she's grieving. I have one that's dealt with it and very emotionally with, anger and then truth of God and all of that. And then little boy, he was 11 when this happened. And, 1 minute everything's fine and it's like nothing happened. And the next minute I find him in his dad's closet with clothes. And just being there in the moment, being willing to drop everything to be there in the moment has been a huge part of that. And we jumped right back into church. And that's hard when your husband filled the pulpit every day of your marriage.
Right.
But I knew we had to. We had to jump right back into spirit-filled, spirit-led church that would love us. And we've done that and gotten involved. We're actually volunteering and all of that because that's who we are. And we knew we needed to jump back on that horse. So, yeah.
Have you found that, speaking of church, like being in worship is healing? Because I know that brings out a lot of raw emotions. And I know talking with people who have dealt with great grief and are in the midst of it, that sometimes that's the hardest is to sing. Because you're like singing usually comes from a joyful place. And when you don't feel very joyful.
Yes. Sitting in worship is healing. I'm not on the stage anymore. I sing and in the congregation now. At first I would say that I just sat in worship. But very much so. I think worship is a huge part of the healing process because it feels like it surrounds yourself in the presence of God. Your flesh doesn't want to. I didn't want to. Easter was probably one of the toughest days, believe it or not, even over my anniversary, which came right after, and Valentine's Day. But with him being a pastor, Easter was tough. I mean, it was just, we were used to a whole routine at Easter that we weren't a part of. And so Easter was tough. But I would say that for us, and it was a forced issue. It was a forced issue. But I had to surround myself with worship and the truth. Right. Thy Will was a big song for me with Hillary Scott. Is that right? Just listening to it over and over again. And I say a song that we kind of had to force into our spirit was called Miracles. And it's I Still Believe in Miracles. And, we had to face ourselves and the doubt that we now had because 27 years of happy marriage where you love your husband with all your heart, you serve God with all your heart. Satan wants to whisper, God's abandoned you. He, it's not fair, and I knew I had to fight those thoughts, and worship was the way we fought it.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it was just stating it till our flesh understood it.
Right. Yeah. How would you encourage people who are coming into the holidays and maybe this is their first holiday season? I know this is your first, so it's very raw, and I appreciate you being so willing to share your heart. But to still make memories and to not feel guilty about, you've talked about moments and and making those memories when it feels wrong to make memories without the person that you're grieving. And even if it's someone who has been in this process for a long time, but maybe hasn't been able to get to a place where they feel like they can do that, what would you say to encourage them in that?
The thoughts that I keep, and first of all, I realize that my thoughts are my own and that I can take hold of them and that I'm not at the mercy of my emotions. But at the same time, I'm not afraid of my emotions either. And one of the things about grieving that's hard is that you have these ambush emotions. So, like, you think you've got it all together, and all of a sudden, this wave comes over. I'm not ashamed of those. I let them happen in our home. I cry. I even blog about them. And, one of the things that God said, even in my daily devos and my blogging, is be honest with people where you really are. And if you're struggling, let them know you're struggling. Let them know how I took you out of that struggle. But as far as the holidays go, I didn't want to decorate. My flesh did not want to decorate. And I've learned that if you resist the devil, which means go exactly the opposite of what he wants you to do.
Right.
So I over decorated this year. Right. I decorated everything this year on purpose. One, because I know Wade loved Christmas and he would want that, and my kids love it, and we need to make memories. He was a memory maker, so I need to be a memory maker as well, and take that on. I think I just resist everything my flesh wants, so that my spirit then becomes stronger than my flesh, and joy comes on the other end of that. I'm not going to tell you it wasn't hard. I stood in at home. I happened to see the stockings, and the thought of, oh my goodness, am I going to put 4 stockings up, or am I going to put 5? I mean, those are the things that hit you in the midst of all of this. And of course, we put 5 up, and we're going to do something very special. We haven't quite figured out exactly what we're going to do. I don't know if it's going to be letters or pictures of something we do in his memory, but he has a stocking, and he'll always have a stocking in our home. So, but yeah, I mean, it's hard, but you push against all of that. Your spouse, your loved one would want you to smile and to have joy. And I remember the day when I asked the Lord, is it okay for me to laugh? Someone said something and I laughed, and it felt so foreign. And I was like, is it okay to laugh? Is it okay to have joy? And so you have to conquer that as well, and realize it is okay. It doesn't mean you're not grieving. Right. It doesn't mean that you didn't love them.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll very intentionally pray for you guys throughout Christmas this year.
And for so many.
Yes. We know people who lost their babies this year, and they're, I don't know, just deep, lots of deep loss all around.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
And I loved, if you haven't seen Francine's, one of her more recent, or it may have been a repost of a blog, but even in that every loss is different. And, there's not necessarily any right things to say. But we can pray. We can always pray and be there and love people. And you obviously could speak more into this than I could. But one of the things that the Lord has taught me before is it's better to say something than to say nothing. And so don't be afraid to kind of try to meet people where they are in their grief.
Yes, absolutely.
The last thing I want to ask you is, what's your favorite Christmas memory?
Favorite Christmas memory? Right now, last year I was overwhelmed, and we had a 12-foot tree in our home, and it was huge. It was just huge, and I had decorated the mantle. Y'all are gonna get it, because that was inside his daily devo and inside the 25 days of Christmas. So I've gotten the mantle. It's
what people are gonna see, right?
Yes, what people are gonna see. But the tree had not gone up yet, and I was overwhelmed with it, and every time we'd mention it, I would just go into this kind of, I got to get that tree up, and everything was going crazy. It's just what life. And I came home from shopping for Christmas, and the 2 little ones and Wade had put the tree up complete for me. And I walked around the corner and saw it, and just burst into tears. So just knowing that they loved, I don't know, there was just something about that moment, knowing that my family had served me in a way that I was overwhelmed in, was huge. And I know it sounds like and probably it has a lot to do with that. It was, one of the last moment memories where he did something amazing for me. So that's probably my Christmas memory, and the 25 days of Christmas were so much fun.
And how cool that you have that on video.
Yes, yes, yes. And him being silly, he even tells a wage joke and just, and laugh. And, he had a sombrero on his head for Feliz Navidad. So
yes.
Too much fun. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, Francine, thank you so much for being willing to share your heart and to, I know it's going to inspire people. It's going to minister to them. And we just appreciate so much. And will you tell us where people can find you on the internet?
Yes. Our website is consumedbythecall.org. I'd love for you to go over there and check out our blogs. And also, there are links on that website to our Facebook, which is where we go live for our daily Devo. But if you are on Facebook and want to look us up, it's Consumed by the Call Ministries. You just type that in, you'll be able to find us, like and follow the page, and you'll be able to not just watch us live. I know some of you may think, I'm not getting up that early in the morning. That's fine. The replay is on there, and you can catch it anytime. We would love to hear from you and know that you've joined us.
Yeah. And also, Francine has a jewelry business. So can people contact you about that as well?
They can. My website is Lifestyles with Francine, and I have some beautiful jewelry. If you have any Christmas gifts you need, I'd love to help you and help you find your style as well. So
yeah,
that'd be great.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Francine, and we are hoping and praying that your Christmas is filled with great memories, and that you and your children can enjoy the time together. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We love you guys.
Thank you. Love you.
Bye.
Yes. Bye.
I love how Francine talked about her mother-in-law setting the example where she always put out an extra plate at the dinner table, and just leaving a legacy of always creating space for other people. And then how cool it is to think about how that's trickled down into my life and your life.
I never met her or even knew she existed, and then I hear that story and I think, wow, she impacted me.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things that Francine talked about was making space for the things that her kids are passionate about and gifted in. And I think that as parents, it's easy to overlook those things. And so I love, and in her and Wade creating that space in the past and kind of helping them develop those things have helped them in their grief. And I think that's a really cool thing
I agree.
that they have moving forward.
Yeah. And the thing that I think all of this, thinking about this time of year and with it being the holidays and talking about people who are experiencing loss in their life and people who maybe the holidays are not easy and they're not happy, and there's even with happiness comes grief. Whenever you're going through grief, like it comes at times when it's unexpected. And so we harp on this a lot, I think, on the podcast, but I think we need to be reminded of it. And I think that probably that means you guys do too. Mm-hmm. But
just noticing people.
Yeah.
Seeing people. One thing that she talked about was standing in the aisle and looking at the stockings and thinking, am I going to get 4 or 5? And how devastating that was for her. And you have to, whoever was standing next to her in that aisle in the store did not know that.
Right.
You just never know what someone is going through around you. And so just be nice, be kind. You know, just like we tell our kids, be kind.
Yeah.
Live that out.
Yeah.
And so,
so I'm inspired, I think, to love people more.
Yes.
And to make my home a safe place and a safe haven for other people, even more so this week than I have been before. So
absolutely. And we hope that you guys, as you go into this week and your kids start getting out of school and you run into the busyness of Christmas parties at school and out of school, that you just love your family well and enjoy this time together.
Yeah, and make some special memories.
Yep.
Take the time to make moments like Francine talked about.
Yep. So we hope you all have a very good week. And so, Merry Christmas, little
Merry Christmas. We'll see you guys back next week. Thanks.